Hey everyone, Sergey Kravchenko of It's a Thing Imagery, and I'm back. I recently posted this video.
While a cold, white sheet of snow covers the Great White North, the west coast of Canada experiences winter a little differently than most.
And I'm going to walk you through how I use Dehancer to help me grade it. Dehancer reached out to me just a little while ago, asked me to review their product totally off the cuff and as honestly as possible. So here it is. I'll walk you through how I decided on my look using Dehancer and the decisions I made during my grade that Dehancer would have affected. I'm also going to be reviewing the iOS app. They asked me to review that as well just because it's something that's new, and a lot of people are actually looking to make their photos more filmic, and having that right in your pocket is a pretty powerful tool. So let's get into it. As you can see, I have my shots lined up here. And these are all from the film I made. It's just a short film, but I decided to use that to see what Dehancer can feel like out in the natural world. I also included my wife in that so we could get a feel of what it's like for skin tones. So I ended up grouping these all into one group. All I did before to these clips is I have an input transform and I have an output transform right over here. I've applied Dehancer already. It comes with preset kind of defaults. It applies the look right off the hop. I didn't like that, so I turned everything off, but I'll quickly walk you through what Dehancer has to offer. So it's got your film. It's got a bunch of film profiles that you can use. Popular ones from like the film still world, the Portra 400, Portra 800, Kodak Gold 200, and Ektar 100, to name a few. And then also on the cine side of things, a lot of people have used Kodak Vision 3 200T, 500T, and so on. You can adjust these settings. You've got a contrast boost, gamma correction, color separation, color boost, film compression. You can expand your black point and your white point if you want your blacks and your whites to hit a floor and a ceiling at a certain spot. You got your film print. Typically in film, they would use a film stock, and then they'd use a film to print onto to show the overall image. For example, Harry Potter, I just recently looked this up, used Kodak Vision 3 200T, and they printed onto Kodak 2383. Now, I'm going to play with this later, but they also have textural adjustments. You've got your film grain, you've got halation, you've got bloom, film damage, film breath, gate weave, a whole bunch of things that kind of give an overall film aesthetic to your images. But that's something I like to do more on a shot-by-shot level as opposed to an overall look. Okay, so now I'm going to go into the overall process of what I'm going to be doing when I'm using this software. This is actually my first time using this to create a look, so come on this journey with me and we'll see how I can use it to adjust my overall grade. Okay, so I'm just going to enable that window first. And you'll see that even just selecting Kodak Vision 3 gives an overall aesthetic here to the shots. One thing I forgot to mention that I did is I actually have a grayscale ramp adjusted here too. So you'll see when I turn this off, it takes, you see the whole image. When I turn it on, you'll see, this is Dehancer turned off. You'll see that there's a contrast curve. That's just a very simple, normal contrast curve. And when we use Dehancer, you'll see the tonal mapping and split toning that Dehancer has put on afterwards, and it's affecting the overall tone curve here. So, I'll turn that on. You can already see that just using Vision 3 200T gives you a bit of a split, and it adjusts your contrast curve here. It kind of brings the floor up, brings the ceiling down, and gives you a nice split tone. Okay, I'm gonna actually pick a few more, see what looks good to me. So I've picked Portrait 800, and now I'm gonna go into my print. So now you can see that using both together, you get quite a difference in your image. So you can use that sparingly. If you feel like it's too aggressive, you can use this analog range limiter, and that kind of brings the overall tones down, less contrast, so you have a bit more control over your image. If you find that it's too punchy with this 2383 on, I actually realized I had a bit of contrast turned on already. You could just tone down the contrast here. If you find that all your images are starting to get too dark because of your adjustments, You can adjust your overall exposure. Although doing this on a shot-by-shot level is probably a good idea, but I have noticed that overall, actually, you know what, I'll take that down. Yeah, I'm gonna do this on a shot-by-shot level. Okay, let's see what this Fujifilm 3513 looks like. A bit cooler. A bit more washed out. Let's see, this is my image before Dehancer. This is after. This is just the Portrait 800, and this is with the 3513. Let's see with Kodak 2383, that usually leans a bit warmer, which it does. I think I'm gonna play around with that look. Now, one thing that's important when you're doing look development is you want to be able to see what it's doing to everything, because you want a matching aesthetic, but you don't want to be fighting your look the whole time. I think I'm going to keep this down at linear, because I think I'm just liking the Portrait 800 right now. Okay, so the expand is where I went into. I'm going to play around with my black levels, kind of give this a bit more of that film aesthetic, lifting the blacks a bit more. And then with the whites, you can see in the overall curve here, how it's affecting the ceiling on where it sits. And now that that's done, I just choose linear again, going to enable. Now I can make overall adjustments to the image here. So now that I've played around a bit with the white point, maybe I'll drop that down. Now play with the contrast here. And I'm liking what the contrast is doing to most of my shots. Okay. And then the saturation they have set to 100. The reason they want that is because if you push it beyond there, your images might start to break, and that's not really something that they want, but you can always pull it back if it's doing too much for you. Okay, now that I've got my look selected, I'm gonna go over and do my shot-by-shot adjustments, and then when I go over to the textural side, we'll slow things down again. Okay. You'll notice I'm only going through and doing one thing. I'm just adjusting my exposure right now, and then I'm gonna go back and do my balance overall to make sure the images are cohesive, and then I'm gonna go into my contrast and so on. Sometimes what I like doing is actually playing around with the lift gamma gain and when I'm doing my contrast adjustments, just because the overall contrast tool doesn't really hit the midtones as much as I'd like. And for a shot like this, I'd like to hit my midtones. So now I'm going to go into the saturation. I prefer to stay in the HDR section just because the saturation is a little bit cleaner. Feel free to use the other saturation knob sparingly. It's just cleaner going out of the HDR section here. So I'm going to go back there, and that's what I'm going to use my saturation for. And there's never anything wrong with going back and fixing something when you notice it along the way. Okay, I'm happy with that. And one thing I'm going to do is, using my power window here, I'm just going to warm up my wife's face a little bit. Make it nice, large, and soft. Same thing, kind of stick this into linear. Turn that off. Just warm it up a bit. And then I'm just going to track that. Perfect. See what that looks like.
awe-inspiring, especially with the winter rain trickling through the forest.
Excellent. Okay, now I'm pretty happy with that. We're gonna go into the textural side of things with Dehancer. Okay, so now there's halation, bloom, grain, and our look. I only usually use this if I'm doing my own kind of grading with different groups. So that one I'll keep turned off, but here I'll turn this one on. And you'll see that there's already some halation going on. So halation happens when you have light bouncing onto the red layer of film, causing a bit more warmth coming through. And you also have, like in these high contrast areas, you'll see a bit more of a reddish glow. So there's a point where there's no remjet, which was a process that helps eliminate halation. So you'll notice if you go no remjet, that redding really starts to show, and they have that setting, or you just do it a normal bit. So I'm gonna go through, and because I like a similar look to everything, I'm going to find one that fits for me, and then I'll apply it overall to all my shots. Curious about this no remjet here, so yeah, I'm gonna stick with that and see what that looks like. Okay, so I'm gonna apply that overall to all the shots. You can see it added a bit of warmth and a bit more of a red tone. You can see that in the vector scope down here. There's more red coming into the image, but I like what it's doing. So now that that's done, again, go through everything, double check that it's working for you. It's actually doing some nice stuff up here. You know, now that I'm on this shot, I'm just going to add another power window and just drop the sky a little bit more. I like to go a little lazy with this sometimes and just add a simple gradient. Go back here, offset, and drop that down. Yeah, that's nice. Great. Okay, and then into the woods we go. Let's see what the halation did over here. Same thing, kind of shifting everything over red, as you can see in the vector scope. Maybe not so much on this one. So I'll just drop that down a little bit. Okay, now for bloom, I'm gonna stick actually with this shot of my wife here. I'm gonna turn that on. So we have this bloom setting here, same thing. We have a bunch of different kind of film stocks that bloom would be affected by. I'm gonna go over to the large formats version and see what that looks like. That's lovely. Okay, I'm gonna full screen that. Yeah, it's kind of giving like a pro mist sort of feel to the shot. Really softens things up. I also shot these on some vintage lenses, the Nikon Nikkor AIS lenses. So there's already a fair bit of softness to them, but this just adds that overall touch in the highlights. Okay, so now that that's done, apply that to everything. And then once again, go through and see how that's affecting all my shots. And then last but not least, we've got our grain. I'm gonna go back again to this, I'll go to this shot here. So we've got our film grain. I'm gonna enable this. Now it could go pretty heavy. You see that's a lot of grain, but unlike the resolve grain, this one looks a lot more natural. It is a little processor heavy, so it just takes a little second to process here. Okay, but I'm going to go in a larger format. I like the 65, very subtle, ISO 50. I might even pull it back just a tad. Nice and subtle. Okay, so I like that, so I'm gonna apply that to everything again. And this is really shaping up. So far, I'm happy with everything that's done. A couple things I might change before I fully upload this, but overall, I think Dehancer has been a great tool. It really gives you all the filmic tools that you'd like to kind of give a bit more substance, a bit more of that nostalgic look to your film or your short. I find I'm going to be using this a lot. I definitely really enjoy the textural side of things, and I'm gonna experiment with different profiles and the print emulation just to see what I could pull off with this. Dehancer also on their YouTube has a bunch of people posting what they use. So if you have an idea, or if you're like, I don't know what these might look together, check out their YouTube, because they might actually have something that's been done, and it'll work in your future project. Lastly, we have the Dehancer iOS app. So I'm just gonna show you guys what that's like. Okay, so I've opened up the app here, and I've got a bunch of the raw photos that I've taken on my iPhone 15 Pro Max. And I've always wanted to experiment with getting a bit more of a filmic look, and Dehancer has just that for you. So they have a bunch of different profiles here that you can already start with, see what it feels like for you. Maybe I might find a shot that's got a bit more going for it. Let's see, maybe something like this. So they've got a bunch of profiles here. I like that one. And then you can go ahead and edit. So you can adjust your exposure, your tonal contrast here. Your saturation, they'll leave it 100. I think that's because if they want you to saturate it more, it might break the image. Color density, kind of talking about how when colors get more saturated, they'll get darker, so you want a bit more of that if you want a filmic look. And your target white, so if your whites are gonna warm up or cool down. I think I like a bit more of that warmth. A bit more color density. Maybe a bit more exposure. They also have the Kodak 2383 and Fujifilm 3513. So I'm gonna experiment with the Kodak. Oh yeah, amazing. Awesome. So that's the Dehancer app. They also have a bit more going on here. If you want more film grain, you've got your custom version. I'm gonna go with that 65mm ISO 50. Developer, a bit more contrast boost. See what's the expand do. Oh, this adjusts your black point and your white point. So it's actually very similar to your Dehancer plugin. Your halation. Let's go with the Remjet. Oh, look at that. Okay, what about this? And drop that down a little bit. Yeah, that's amazing. Okay, and some bloom. Maybe I'll dial that back. Add a vignette. And there we go. That's a lovely edited photo. Well, thank you for joining me in this review of Dehancer. This is my first time in a long time doing a review like this, but if you'd like to see how I color grade, how I edit my photos, if you have any questions for some ideas for videos that you'd like to see, drop me a comment, message me on Instagram at It's a Thing Imagery right here, and I'll see you on the next one.